Hey everyone, welcome to Locked In. In our most recent video, we talked about Ohio State's big hire of Chip Kelly as a new offensive coordinator and the things that we think that Kelly will bring to the table for the Buckeyes in the 2024 season. Tonight, we want to shift our focus back to Michigan, and we want to make a just basically an initial take of our thoughts on Michigan's announcement this weekend of hiring NFL DC Wink Martindale as their new defensive coordinator. And before we jump into that, we want to say, as always, just we want to encourage, people to subscribe to the channel. We're pushing to get toward 500. We're creeping there every day, and we appreciate all the support that you've given us. And with that being said, gentlemen, let's talk a little bit about Wink Martindale. I think the first thing we could say is it looks like that that at least to some extent the Michigan Baltimore connection is still going to be there, if not as direct as it was through the Harbaughs. And lots of people, have talked about that, at some length. But I think that you're going to see a similar thing, coming in with Martindale, who many people, they would describe as being, kind of the father of this defense that Michigan has run, that lots of people call the amoeba defense from when they first originated it with Baltimore a few years back. And it worked wonders at Michigan. I mean, I think that we're well documented in saying that this is an excellent defensive scheme. Michigan has got some of the absolute best defensive players in the nation coming back, and people like Will Johnson with Kenneth Graham, Mason Graham. Those are just the three biggest names. But they also have another round of players that might not be in the All-America conversation, but they're definitely all conference players, and several of them are going to have a chance to play professional ball. So I read this as Sharon Moore making a really good idea to say we're going to stay with continuity, because he knows very well what the main ingredient in that Michigan national championship run was, and that was the defense, and they did quite a job. What do y'all think?
I think Michigan did a great job, and I think that the Ravens have proven to do a good job running that exact same defense. And you know who the creator of that defense is? The same exact guy who's going to be on that Michigan coaching staff.
Mhm.
Now, I don't really know if their defense will change all that much, but I think what'll happen is you'll see Wink Martindale come in there and teach some new coaches how to actually run this defense and how to coach it, because you saw the entire Michigan coaching staff leave and follow Harbaugh to the NFL. So, I mean, there's nobody left who really knows it. I mean, I'm sure Sharon Moore knows at least a portion of it, and probably a large portion of it. But at the same time, you get the creator of the defense in there, teach some younger guys how it works, how to coach it, and continue some success at Michigan. I think that's their idea, and I think it's a pretty good one.
So, I mean, I don't know how long he's going to be there. I think that's one of the things worth mentioning with him is obviously Wink Martindale is a highly respected name among the NFL coaching circles, and he had a little bit of a rough patch with the New York Giants. There was a lot of reports about him and the head coach butting heads and having relationship issues. They came out and said that wasn't necessarily the case, but it was continuously reported. So there probably was something there. And obviously him leaving the NFL, going down a level to college, at least for a year, finding some success down there, helping establish maybe a new set of defensive coaches that stay at Michigan for longer. Maybe that's the plan. Whatever the case, this is a fantastic hire for Michigan. Obviously, you get the father of the defense in that they've already run. And again, he's a highly respected guy. He brings a name with him. So not only do you have a guy who knows his stuff, but you have a name as far as the recruiting trail and trying to get, high level defensive prospects to come play at Michigan. Just having him there for a year, even if that's all it is, and it could be longer than that. But however long he's there, that just attracts more attention to them. Of course, they just won a national championship, so they already have been boosted in that regard. But with a new head coach, have another big time name standing next to him for the defensive side of the ball, I think is a huge deal. So it's obviously a very great get and just a really smart hire by Moore. And then I guess as a little add on with this, not only do we have a new defensive coordinator, but we have a new defensive line coach for Michigan, which is Greg Scruggs from Wisconsin. He was assistant for 2 years there as a defensive line coach, and now he's just bumping over to a Big Ten rival per se at Michigan. And there's been a couple of mixed things, reports about him, but it seems like from what we're reading, a lot of the Michigan side is very excited to have him there, and then just people that are not quite biased or people who are more neutral in their opinions, they say that he's a big time up and coming assistant coach who has a lot of talent. He's a good recruiter from what people have said. So that could be another big get for them. Obviously, the loss of their defensive line coach there at Michigan is a big deal. But having another guy come in who's young, up and coming, having him under Wink to learn that that defense and all the stuff that he needs to learn under a guy who obviously knows it very well, I think is another big deal and could really set Michigan up going forward.
One of the things that I would ask about Martindale that I'm looking forward to see how it pans out. He's known as an odd front guy, and for the most part, Michigan was in a 4-man front. I mean, they have moments where that they do change up their front quite a bit, like anybody else will. It seems like anymore that even though that there's like usually a commitment to either a 4-man or a 3-man, you will see, especially with the 4-man fronts, that they will slide a lot of times a zero nose down and get their get tackles over or get the ends over the tackles. So I'm interested to see what he does there, because I could see that defensive front playing some 3-man, but at the same time, they're awfully good in a 4-man front. And I think that kind of lends itself to a lot of what their guys do, because and I think it's easier for a coach to change than it is for players to change sometimes whenever you're shifting, because the demands put on the zero nose is a much bigger demand than what's put on a defensive tackle in a 4-man front. So, I mean, I could see Kenneth Grant playing at the zero nose, but I don't know that that's his position. I mean, I think he's more comfortable being, an even front guy. Likewise the same. I could see Mason Graham playing a 4 technique and being quite good at it. But at the same time, I also think that he's made a name for himself, in that 4-man front. So I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what he does with them. It's always interesting whenever coaches come in, and I think that you're definitely right that one of the big trends that you see now in college ball is they want coordinators who have ties to the NFL, and I think that's you could say that probably links back to just the changing landscape and getting and keeping players. If you want to play in the NFL, you want people who've been there. That's right. I mean, it makes sense. And so I think that for Michigan, this is a really strong hire. I know that they've lost some key people, but that's part of it. People are going to move on, and you're going to have to replace them. And I think that it seems like with some of the Michigan folks that I talk with, that they're obviously concerned about the overturn, especially on the defensive side of the football. But that's going to happen. I mean, people, you rarely see championship teams where somebody isn't hired away, and when you got a guy like Harbaugh that's hired away, sometimes they take the house with them. That's one of those things. I mean, these guys all made the jump with him. They're, sticking together, and sometimes people are package deals. But, Michigan is not, they're not left, without really. I mean, they've got plenty of good players, and I think Martindale's he's going to be a real feather in the cap for Michigan. I'm looking forward to what they do with it. Right now, I think the most recent thing I saw today, that who was it? I can't even remember. It was one of the betting sites. It's leaving me right now. I'm not too familiar with the betting end of things, but maybe DraftKings. I'm not sure, but they have predicted that Michigan would win 9.5 games this year, and they've got Michigan and Penn State. They're saying 9.5. Whatever that half a game means, they got it on all of them, and then they have Oregon and Ohio State at the top. And, and I think that it'd be really easy, for someone to say, yeah, Michigan's going to taper off. But, I mean, I think that this hire, it ought to excite some people. And I think that, a lot of those guys, they have 3 surefire first-round picks on the defensive side of the ball that we've talked about a lot. And I think that whenever you combine that with a man who knows the ropes, this ought to be interesting. And, one thing I think we haven't said is Martindale's known for just, blitzing the heck out of people. And that's really how Michigan, got a lot of their success last year. If you take and watch clips of Martindale whenever he was in Baltimore and when he was in New York, you see a lot of the same stuff. You see a lot of things are just designed to make an offensive line's pass set just fall apart. And it worked for him in the NFL, and he's going to be going instead of teaching this to a group of guys who are unfamiliar, with that style of play. He's going and talking to some guys who have really mastered it. And I mean, all he's got to do is just go back and look at that Alabama film, look at the Michigan film, various times throughout the season, and see what they did, not just individually, but just as a complete unit. And I think you got to be pretty excited to know that you're going to have a chance to work with that. So I'm looking for big things to happen out of the Michigan defense under Wink Martindale.
We got
Yeah.
2 more positions, or 3 actually, for that defensive side that are still vacant, which is linebackers, quarterbacks, and safeties. So we've figured out the defensive coordinator. We know what the defensive line coach is going to be, but now we got three positions on that side of the ball that still need to be filled. And one would assume that Martindale is going to have a big say of who he's going to be able to bring in. And being at Michigan with them just winning the national championship and having Wink in there, you would think that they would have their pick of the litter about who they want to go after. And I'm sure that Martindale has an idea of who he wants working in that staff with him, and whether it be young guys that he's going to teach so they can stay there, or if it's going to be guys that he wants to bring in just to get some more experience and then go off somewhere later. Like I could see either of those being the case, but obviously with Moore being the final say of who's hired, you would hope that as far as Michigan side, you'd hope that they're probably young up and coming guys with a lot of talent and ability that Martindale can instill this defense in, and they can be there for years to come.
Yeah, one thing that I'd say their inside linebackers coach, and probably just their linebackers coach, it'll probably be Martindale. So that's one thing that he does know. But speaking of the defensive backs, losing Clinkscale really hurts, especially after he had already told the team and the coaching staff, "Hey, I'll be here at least another year." It's like, I'm not leaving to go with Harbaugh to the NFL. And then, turns around right after they hire the defensive coordinator and just, "I'm gone. See y'all." I mean, it's gotta be a tough blow, but at the same time, you gotta think, well, I mean, that was 2 days after they hired Martindale. So I mean, I'm sure they have something in the works. They probably wanted somebody else there, but I mean, I don't know why you would. I trust them though. I think they'll get the defensive backs coach right, and I think Martindale will probably take over the linebackers for the most part. So I mean,
just to add in here, I was reading something from one of the Michigan sites. Martindale is a walking defensive coordinator. He will not be assigned a position group. This makes it far more likely that the current special teams coordinator, JB Brown, will coach a position along with special teams, just like Jay Harbaugh did in the last couple seasons.
He'll probably be with the linebackers. Then I'd say Martindale will just tell him what to do.
Mm-hmm.
But you're still going to need that defensive backs coach, and there's not a lot of ways to go with that one. Just being honest, losing that one hurt, especially this late.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, it's just hard because I mean, it's I guess from the outside looking in, you might think certain things, but coaching's a pretty fluid world. I mean, people change a lot, and then there's stuff that happens because that's one of those that I mean, anybody who's been in it for any amount of time, I mean, there's stuff that opens and there's stuff that changes. And so, I mean, I think that especially, in this day and age, with players being able to transfer in and out, with pretty, I will say with relative ease. I think everybody understands it. I mean, it's kind of, I guess it's cash and carry world. It's one of those deals that, you might not be there in the future. Things change. And so I hope it works out for them. I think that they've got some good defensive backs, and really, I mean, that can definitely affect the game. As we talked about Johnson the other day, I mean, he's really just, probably a once in every 20 or so years guy, maybe more than that. So I think that they got the players that can sustain a change, and I'm sure they'll get somebody in there, who knows what they're doing. But I agree with you. I think it's tough whenever you have a guy who's going, yeah, you know what, we're going to be here, got to go another run with you, and then they're not. I mean, it sucks, but I think also these people are mature. They know how the world works. They can move around if they want to. So I think they'll recover. That Michigan team, they're smart and they're good. And so I'm still hopeful for what they're going to put out next year. regardless of how things change. But like I said, still yet, no matter who, fills in the various places, I think Martindale's a good hire. I think that he's going to make that. He's going to make that, match up against Chip Kelly pretty interesting. I mean, I'm like I said last night, we talked. I'm really interested to see how that one pans out. I think it's going to be good, and I think Michigan's going to put up a lot more of a fight than a lot of people think that they will this coming year. They might surprise some people.
Yeah, with all that being said, though, I think that Michigan, keeps up the stellar defensive play,
Yeah.
and they're gonna get some people trained in there, so they don't need much individual training and like fundamental training for most of their guys this coming up year. So I mean that's a good thing because you got a lot of developed players already. So it gives the coaches some time to learn the new system and everything that they want them to exactly teach. So I think by the end of next year, they'll have the foundation laid for a few more years, if not many years, at Michigan to keep that defense stellar. And I think that's really good for them. And for all of us here, y'all got anything else left to say?
Right.
All
Well,
right.
so.
Well, stay locked in, everyone.